Hey, howdy ho, all you beautiful ass bitches out there. Welcome back to the $2 Film Club. And guys, hold your nips, hold your legs, hold your toes, hold up before you put them on OnlyFans, because we are talking about the Odyssey today. And before I get bullied on social media more about my opinions on Greek mythology, bro, I do want to
There's
say
less of an opinion, more of a not understanding, a lack of understanding.
here, neither there. We're here talking about the Odyssey, not Troy, but the Odyssey. Which, you know what, bro? I gotta say, I'm really disappointed. If you guys don't know, Brad Pitt does not make a cameo in this movie as Achilles, and I was really fucking disappointed. However, without that said, now because I need to get better at remembering to say this, spoilers will be involved in this video. If you guys have not seen the Odyssey, well, I find it ironic that I have to get better at saying it now on this episode for the one thing that's like been out in history for like however long. So spoilers ahead. If you haven't read like one of the 50 million versions of Homer's original poems, click off or just like stay, because I think this will be a really interesting conversation. Because, dude, I've done a little bit of research on the Odyssey. I watched a few videos, and I think I'm a little bit more well versed in Homer's like that the really famous. I forgot what her name is. That the most well known version of like the Homer interpretation.
You talking about one of the more recent ones, the Emily Wilson translation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, is that what your video was using for the video you're watching?
That's what they use as like the basis, I guess. So yes.
Okay, nice.
I felt like that was the most well known.
I wouldn't say it's the most well known, but I mean, before we get into that, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. Especially if you're on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Music. And also a little bit of a announcement. We just launched our TikTok. And so if you would like to go over there and make fun of Ryan for his lack in education, you can. Everyone else has been doing it. But yeah, with that said, let's talk about the Greek myths. As Ryan mentioned before, this is kind of like a second part, as we did talk about Troy in the lead up to the release of this movie. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen that episode already, maybe go ahead and check that out. I thought it was an interesting conversation, and I think this one's going to be a good conversation too.
Yeah, you know what? I'm like super fucking glad we got to watch Troy and talk about it a few weeks ago, because at least for me, someone who didn't have like a lot of knowledge in Greek mythology, let alone the Iliad and the Odyssey, and how they kind of both form this one story, but yet they're different ones at the same time. Like learning how like Agamemnon has like his own story about his events of what happened after the fall of Troy. Like I think finding out about all that little stuff was way more interesting now coming out of the fact, but the basis of Troy really helped me going into the Odyssey for the first time as someone who doesn't really know much about the Odyssey. And I thought the way the Odyssey used the fall of Troy as like its centerpiece, I thought was really fascinating, rather than using it as like a 40-minute sequence that I thought what me and you kind of were assuming it might have been.
Oh yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be more like a prologue, and
that's what I thought too.
But I mean, yeah, because like I told you before this, that the Trojan horse and like the fall of Troy it's not depicted at all in the Iliad, and it's mentioned very briefly a couple of times in the Odyssey. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad now. You know, you're glad, I guess, that we watched Troy, because I know you were very hesitant to watch it in the first place. But yeah. Real quick, I do want to reiterate a point that I had in that episode, just because it's been such a big part of the conversation going in and coming out of this movie, at least that I've seen on my feeds and everything. yeah, we're not going to talk about casting in the sense of its diversity, and we're not going to talk about historical accuracy, just because I think those arguments are extremely stupid and have no relevance on the actual product of the film, and they shouldn't either. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Dude, especially when like every character people are complaining about
have less
amounts
than
to
10 minutes
dude,
of
amounts to
screen
like
time.
7 minutes of screen time combined. Like,
Yeah,
and it's a 3 hour
um,
movie, guys. Like, get it over with. Like,
yeah,
stop being a fucking baby.
but yeah, it's my thing is that I think that one of the defining aspects of the myths is that they're not real, which sounds like a dumb thing to point out, but it's true. Like
It'd be cool to
this,
think it happened though.
yeah, none of this is real. All of this is fictional. It's the Odyssey and the Iliad are regarded as one of like the first fictional um, pieces of literature. And so that's, kind of how I'm looking at it. So yeah, none of the characters existed in real life, and like I said last time, people even debate whether or not these places were ever even like a real place, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, and I don't know, it again, it feels dumb to say because in the movie and in the poem, there's fantastical and mythical elements, so I don't understand why people are like treating this like it's a historical account of real events that happened, because they're not. When we think these poems were originally composed, uh, it was centuries after all this stuff was supposedly set to have taken place. And even then, these are interpretations. The poem is an interpretation of the myth, and even then, it was updated for the contemporary audience of its time. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the Greek myths are meant to be interpreted, and you can't even read a version of the myth that isn't an interpretation, because I have these two versions, which are the Robert Fagles and the Emily Wilson translations. And unfortunately for us, translation is not an exact science. And so you cannot read a version of the Odyssey or the Iliad that isn't an interpretation, because it was composed in ancient Greek, which nobody's like living actually speaks anymore. Like there isn't if you're not a scholar or a linguist or anything, you probably don't know how to speak or read ancient Greek.
Well, also when like they were first making it with Homer, wasn't a lot of it just done in like pictures and not even like writing itself? Like that's what I've been hearing. Just like
The whole poem or the
yeah,
myths? Like the
no,
myths,
just the
yes,
myths.
were at least from the surviving relics that we have today, are probably more uh, depicted through artwork. But yeah, I mean, when the poem was composed, most of the general Greek population was illiterate,
Yeah,
and so that's why it was told as an oral tradition. The word epic is taken from the Greek word that means to tell or to say. So the modern definition of epic is not the same as the ancient definition of epic, which is that's why we call it an epic poem. Um, but yeah, it was an oral tradition, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever fucking played telephone before, but you can probably imagine how different the story becomes person to person. And also, ancient Greek is very different from modern Greek, and even though it is an Indo-European language like English, is pretty much no relation whatsoever in terms of like structure and the way that it sounds, like phonetics and everything. Like it's very there's never going to be a one-to-one translation of the Odyssey or the Iliad from ancient Greek. So if you read this in high school or you're reading it now because of the movie, you are reading an interpretation of the poem. So now that we've established that those are not real reasons for the movie to be bad, we can actually talk about the movie. I think it's important to look at this film within the context of like the wider Nolan filmography. So I kind of wanted to start with that, especially because I did go out of my way to watch his other films before this. Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest criticism of his films, especially in recent years, has been kind of like his depiction of the female characters, and I think he kind of struggles in this one too. It's not the worst, but you can kind of tell. And obviously, a lot of his movies, like post Batman, have been pretty much solely written by him, whereas before, like he would write stuff with his brother. And I also think there's a clear difference in how his movies are written when he's doing it just by himself and without like someone else as well.
Oh no. Like I feel like I'm 50-50 on that statement. Like I agree with like a lot of the past stuff, but in Odyssey in particular, I really like the way he uses and interprets Athena for like this movie. And I think it's opposite to the way Penelope's used in the movie, which is what I think fits more of the narrative I think you're going off of, where the women characters aren't really particularly written well, especially when it comes to like just him writing by himself. But as like I've been doing a little bit more research on the original Odyssey, not the original Odyssey, but
The poem.
the poem and the versions that everyone mostly know, I've really come to appreciate the way that Nolan used Zendaya's Athena in this movie and how it kind of diverges from how she's been used in the poem themselves. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I know you will. But in the poems, doesn't Athena hang out with Telemachus? Telemachus. Bro, don't kill me. But doesn't she go with him to like Sparta and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned this when we got out of the theater. So the reason Telemachus is constantly like looking at other people that he's with and being like, "Have I ever told you have wise eyes, Athena's eyes?" That's a reference to the fact that in the poem, she does accompany him. Like all the gods are personified in the poem, and the only one that is and isn't personified in the movie is Athena. And Athena's the one that we spend the most time with because she does visit Telemachus at the beginning of the poem in the disguise of someone, and tells him like, "Oh, you should go to go see King Menelaus and King Nestor to get news about your father." And then she also accompanies him in a different disguise on the ship to the first country that they stop in, which I'm pretty sure is Sparta. But then we also see her having conversations with like some of the other Olympians too, mainly Zeus. Like whenever she goes up to Olympus to go talk about stuff that's going on, we see that in the poem as well. So
yeah,
or it's described to us.
I like the way that like Nolan put his own twist on his version of Athena, where I still feel like a lot of the same fundamentals of who she was in the poem to still be there. Like, even though it's not exactly like it is in the poem, but I like the way he uses her kind of disguising herself in this movie with the reveal at the end of the film that she's really just like pretending, not pretending, but has the disguise of a person that Matt Damon slaughtered, or a woman that he slaughtered in the fall of Troy, which I was like, it didn't like bother me at first or anything. I just kind of thought, okay, but it's one of the few things that I've sat on while thinking about this movie that I feel like I've come to appreciate a little bit more. And the Zendaya Athena stuff is one of them for me.
I half agree with you. I'm a little torn. Like, this is one of the things that I've also been like trying to like sit with ever since we got out of the theater, to sort of be like, do I think that works, or do I think it maybe doesn't work as well as he wanted it to? And it also doesn't help that I've been hearing a lot of other people talk about it, and they all talk about it in the way that you just did, where they take it to mean that she was in disguise as it with the appearance of the Athenian priestess that they kill on Troy. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but to me, I never read it as that, even though I have read the poem and I do know that the gods disguise themselves whenever they're interacting with mortals. My thing is that I feel like the movie is working overtime to get us to question whether or not the gods are real. And so that's why when that reveal happened, even though I still don't hate the reveal, and I think it works nice, like, thematically on, like, when I got out of the theater, and since, as I've been, like, stewing in my thoughts about it, it's kind of made less logical sense to me in terms of the story, because he starts the movie off with the title, the super title that says "In a Time of Apparent Magic," which, even when that came out on the screen, I kind of sat there and I was like, that doesn't bode well for some of, like, the more mythical elements of the story. And even though I knew, like, the Cyclops and all that was going to be in it, one of the big things that we kind of didn't know walking in was how much of an impact the gods were going to have on the story. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't hate the reveal. I think it works thematically, but I think in the context of the story, it feels jarring that, they include all of those other fantastical elements, but then with the gods, we don't see any of the other gods. All their placement in the story is completely taken out of the movie, and so we're only left with that thing with Athena. And to me, because she also shows up so few and far between, and he's the only one that ever seems to, like, be able to interact with her or, like, have a conversation with her. To me, when the reveal happened, I took it more as less that she was manifesting physically in the appearance of the priestess that they kill, and more of, like, he was just seeing her as the physical manifestation of his grief and or his guilt and trauma.
Well, so, like, that's the exact way I take it, is when he kills her in real time, like, not Athena, the actual Athenian princess that you were saying. I feel like that's the symbol of his snap, of, like, where he really starts his arc as a character in the story of the movie The Odyssey, because at least in the poems, I didn't get a good sense of him. It just seems like he's kind of a hero for getting back to his family, and that's really about it. And I appreciate that, like, Odysseus in this is, like, they try to give him a little bit more, like, deep emotional impact that is used through the Athena character and built through. So who said this? I was listening to, like, a podcast or something, and Nolan's got, like, this trend between this and Oppenheimer, where he keeps going to these big men figures that realize that they've, like, done too much to destroy the world of some sense. And I thought that was a really interesting concept, and it's made me think a little bit more about the Athena and Odysseus relationship in this movie. And that's why I was telling you before, I really want to go and see it again. That was, like, one of the through lines I really wanted to try and pay a little bit more attention to, because, like, the issue you were having with the way the gods were interpreted in this movie, I'm 50-50 on, because I don't always think the way the poem kind of presents them as these, like, haggling gods, just, like, kind of making fun of the humans down below at the beginning, right? Like, that's how it starts.
I mean, when we first
meet them, like, mocking them of some sorts.
Yes and no. Like, when we first meet them in the poem, they are, or Zeus particularly, he's kind of lamenting how the mortals all act like every bad thing that ever happens to them is because of the gods. That's like the gods handing it out. And then he's sort of just like, yeah, we do preside over, like, some of this, like, divine justice stuff, but it's because of their actions that incites all of this. But yeah, I mean, obviously in the poem, Athena is also very outspoken about how she cares about Odysseus and she wants him to finally come home, because she's like he's like her favorite mortal.
That's the part that feels like it gets a little lost for me, is how she's exactly helping him get back home in the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, because because the movie is trying so hard to be
Make
vague
the
about whether or not
yeah.
they're real, and and that's the thing. I know a lot. I feel like a lot of people have been taking that to heart as like, oh, she is real. I don't think the movie does enough for that for me, to get me to fully commit to like, oh yeah, they're real, and she's just in disguise. I feel like it's more just like the hauntings of his PTSD
Yeah, I don't think
and
she's
whatnot.
real.
Yeah, see, I don't think but everyone has been saying that she is real, and even like reading through the Wikipedia, it treats it as if she was just in disguise, and I'm like, I don't think it reads like that because she doesn't really do anything except like appear to him every once in a while,
In the most like
and
random, like dire situations too.
yeah, so to me, it just feels like he's just hallucinating essentially, and that was one of the things that I feel like that he could have gotten away with her actually being real and taking on like the physical appearance of the Athenian priestess, and it would have made sense. But now I'm just like thinking back, I'm like, I don't understand why the gods can't be real, but like all the other weird shit can be real as well. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of her stuff that she does do to like help them is taken out of the story um, for that purpose, and so she's the one who pleads with the Olympians, specifically Zeus, that you know he's been in captivity with Calypso way too long, or like enough, like he suffered enough, and now it's time for him to go home. And they all pretty much agree with him. And mind you, Poseidon is not here uh, for this meeting because I think he's in Ethiopia for some feast that they're throwing in his honor. And so she takes the opportunity to sort of undermine him because this entire time, like these last 10 years, Poseidon has been like the main figure in preventing him from getting home. And so they all agree. And now that Zeus has set it in motion, or he said, like, yeah, he can go home, that's when they send Hermes down to go tell Calypso that Zeus has declared that it's time for him to go home, and Calypso doesn't have any choice but to release him, or else face the wrath of Zeus. And then Athena goes to inspire Telemachus to go seek out information about his father and essentially start the transition of him becoming like a full-grown man so that he can help Odysseus when he comes home to face the suitors. And yeah, I mean, she's with Telemachus through a lot of it. And then once she appears to Odysseus once before he gets home, like he reaches Ithaca, and then she appears to him again. And yeah, I mean, most of the stuff in that she does in Ithaca is not present in the movie. She like helps disguise Odysseus, and she helps like sort of lure the suitors into a trap by inspiring them to insult Odysseus further and attack him directly, even when they don't know that it's him, just so that he has more motivation, I guess, to like actually kill them. And like she also when they start fighting everyone as well at the end, she shields them from the attackers' blows as well. And then at the biggest thing too is that at the very end of the story, once they've killed all the suitors, they have to deal with their family members coming to get revenge for their deaths. And Athena literally comes down and she's like, "You guys can't fight about this anymore. Zeus has declared that you have to make peace, so I'm going to make sure that you guys make peace and this isn't an issue anymore." And that's how the story ends.
Yeah, see, like that's where I think I like the movie a little bit more. Is I like the ending. I think
Yeah,
it feels rewarding.
I like the things because the ending to the poem is very anticlimactic, but I do kind of feel like he didn't need to make Athena's role so minimal. Because I again I really don't understand the whole point of him making the audience decide whether or not they're real or not.
Yeah,
I don't think it does anything for the story. And for me, it didn't do anything because now I'm just sitting here complaining about how I don't think it does enough to really hone in that point of like, oh, these are or aren't happening.
I'll argue you on that one because I feel like he does just enough to. This is where I think I like how he didn't really include the guides a whole lot, but you knew they were in the background, still controlling things. Um, in particular, like I keep thinking about all the Zeus stuff. Like whenever he wanted something, you always heard like a thunder, something
Yeah,
off in the distance. Like the minimal stuff like that is something that I like because I think they showed so much of the monsters and the like Calypso's not a demigod, right? Or is she?
she no, she's often referred to as either a minor goddess or a nymph.
Okay, so there's like a lot of those type characters that I think there's enough to confirm that the gods are real.
I mean, because
I,
they don't ever refer to her as that in the movie. Like I just know that because I've read the poem and I
I mean, they say
understand
the
that she
same thing
is.
about Polyphemus, about like how in the books he is Poseidon's son, but in the movie they're like kind of vague about it for some reason.
Yeah.
So like I
Well, I
don't
mean,
know.
in the poem, they can understand him, and they have like conversations with him, and so when they're leaving, the last thing that they hear Polyphemus do is he calls out to Poseidon as his father, and he was like, "I need you to like curse these people to either never go home or arrive late." So it's very clear in the poem that they are what they say they are. But in the movie, and yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I do like all of that stuff with like the lightning and all that and whatnot. I just think, as far as like Athena's concerned, just because she's just not in the movie as much, especially for like how much we were talking, like everyone was talking about, like, oh, Zendaya was called perfect by Christopher Nolan for stuff. And I'm just like, I like, what did she do that was that perfect? She barely has any lines, and whenever she is on screen, she's kind of just staring at Odysseus with kind of like a blank face, or at the end she's like, I can see the tears in her eyes, and I'm like, is that what he thinks is like the perfect performance? I don't know. I'm not saying it's inherently like bad. I just think I kind of wanted him to commit to either making the gods real or not. And
See, to me, like I just kind of read it as like they are real. Like to me, it feels confirmed.
see, I don't know. I don't think it is, because so much of it is us kind of being like, why does this woman keep appearing to him and nobody else can see her? And that was the other thing, like knowing that Calypso is a goddess or a nymph, like she should be able to see Athena. But when one of the earliest conversations that he has with her,
Is on that
she
island,
walks,
right?
yeah, she walks up to him on the beach and she's like, who are you talking to? Especially because, I know that Hermes is also supposed to come down and tell her that she needs to release him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's something I missed, because I've been seeing a lot of people who are saying like, oh yeah, she. They're talking about the twist by saying it's Athena in disguise as the priestess that was killed in the Trojan War, and then but when I watched it, I saw it more as he was hallucinating that he was seeing Athena in that appearance. Like Athena was just to him was just a physical manifestation of his war trauma and the guilt he felt over like the atrocities that happened during the Trojan War.
What was the first? I know the first scene he sees her is on the beach at the beginning, but in terms
Yes.
of the timeline, when is the first time that he sees her? Because for some reason I keep thinking he had a conversation with her before he even left, and he had mentioned Athena before he even left to go fight in Troy, but I could just be misremembering that. And that
I
part,
mean, I don't think he speaks directly to her, but I know they talk about her when we see the flashback to him in bed with Penelope, and she's
yeah,
like
that's the
giving him
scene.
the Athenian like pin or whatever or the brooch that he wears all the time. But I don't think he really speaks to her until after, and that's another reason why I don't think she's real, because he never speaks with her. Like, I think another part of the myth is that Athena helps him with building the Trojan horse or coming up with the idea or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's not in this either. Like, they don't show that to us. The only time he starts seeing her is after the priestess is killed, and they desecrate the statue of Athena or whatever.
Okay, just because this, I know the poems like this where it's not like a linear story, and it's Christopher
Yeah.
Nolan, and it's typically never linear. But that was the one thing I kept like getting confused about. I'm like, wait a second, when did he like first see her again? Because I thought, like, I swear to God, I thought he had like a full conversation with her in my head, like before he even left for Troy. But like I said, I could just
I mean, what do you even call a
misremember
full
that.
conversation? Like,
Okay, not a full conversation, but like a
she
conversation.
has like
for
5
them.
lines in the entire fucking movie.
Like their type of conversation where he'll say
Yeah.
a few things to her and then she'll like have a few worded reply and then she'll disappear. Like I thought one of those moments happened earlier. But like I really just want to see this movie again because it's like
No, yeah.
super dense. And now that I have a better idea of what the actual poem and Homer's stuff included, like there's still a lot of the other things like with Polyphemus that I thought was like, I don't know how to feel about those changes just because like it doesn't mean anything to me, but it's one of those things where out of all things to like kind of just chop up a little bit, this is the one thing you did. Like when I keep thinking about when he reveals himself as who he is in the poems, and that's when Polyphemus calls to Poseidon to help him,
Oh, yeah.
that type of stuff. I thought the movie, like, I guess this kind of goes to your argument in the sense that I wish this is where the gods were a little bit more prevalent because it feels like an unjust change from the poem that doesn't add anything. If anything, it feels like it takes away a little bit of the excitement that you would get from the poem.
I mean, yes and no. I'm sure they sat down and thought about it. Like, oh, do we really want like the big monster to have like a full blown conversation with these guys? Because maybe that kind of like takes the tension out of it. Because in the movie, it's treated very much like in like a horror sense of like, oh, these guys
Yeah.
have no idea what's going on. They've just walked into this creature's domain and they're trapped here, and they have to figure out a way out. Whereas in the poem, they literally just start talking to each other first thing. Like, the Polyphemus comes in, he closes the cave, and then he sees them in the firelight, and he's like, "Who the fuck are you guys? Why are you here?" And then they start trying to talk to him, and I mean, it's a change that I kind of didn't understand when I first saw it, but as the movie kept going on, it became more clear why, and I think they're using it in terms of like the scene individually for tension, but also in they're also trying to use it for like the overall theme of like the idea of like hospitality, and like they mention in the scene like, oh, should we try to reason with it? And then Odysseus is like, what is the point of that even now anymore? Because like clearly Polyphemus didn't deem it wise enough to try to speak to them. He was just like, I'm just gonna start eating these guys. And so it's that whole idea of like hospitality and honoring Zeus's law and whatnot, and then also the idea of like the breakdown of like communication after like the fall of Troy and whatnot. So I understand its point a lot better now than I did when I first saw it, and I think it works. Most of the changes in the story I didn't think, like, I understood why they were changed, and I thought it worked for the movie outside of Zendaya's Athena. Zendaya's Athena is the only one where I'm still really torn on. Like, I understand why it was changed, but I think it's a little needlessly complicated for whatever reason. Because like I do like the change that they make to like Calypso, because Calypso's barely in the poem, and it does start with him on Ojija, and he's trapped there. But I liked that they got rid of the Lotus Eater Island, because I know a lot of people will probably lament all the stuff that they cut out from the poem, but the poem's really long, and like I told you before, there cannot be a 1-to-1 adaptation of the poem, just because it wouldn't fit in, you know, a modern movie or anything. And you know, the Lotus Eaters are like a very small part. They have like a few lines devoted to them, and then we move on.
Yeah.
So I also liked that they explain why he is there for so long without just making Calypso be like the weird nymph that, you know, keeps him there because she wants to marry him. On top of it giving another reason for him to like be telling, or for us to be experiencing the story out of chronological order as well. So I liked those changes. I thought they worked for the movie. Yeah, it takes out like the Phaeacians that he meets after he leaves her island. And I don't know. I like their placement in the poem. I don't know how they would have made it work in the movie. 'Cause yeah, I mean I've heard a lot of, this is where I've heard a lot of people like talk about it in terms of like the way that he portrays the women, because obviously we talked like Zendaya is barely in the movie, one of the most prominent figures in the poem that is female, and then the princess Nausicaa, she is completely excised because all of the Phaeacian subplot was taken out, and the Phaeacians are the ones that he explains the other half of the story to, because Nausicaa finds him and, you know, essentially rescues him. And then she tells him to go up to the palace and beg the queen to take him in, for to give him shelter. And then everyone in the kingdom starts being like, "Oh, who are you?" Like they start helping him, and then that's when he decides to tell them the stuff from the beginning of the story, where like they left Troy and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
All the way up until like the Calypso stuff.
The one change that I'm really happy about is the Cersei stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like if they,
that one was the worst.
It to me, like even in the poem, it feels kind of out of place for a story about a man trying to go back to his wife. That's my.
I think for a
thing.
modern audience, yes. Like for me, I was curious how they were going to adapt that, because even when I read it in high school, I kind of just sat there and I was like, I don't understand why we're supposed to root for this guy when before this in the structure of the story, we've seen him like sleep with Calypso, and then now I'm being told even before that he spent a year and mind you, unimpeded. Like he could have left.
Yeah, he could have left
before that, but you're
he
telling
stayed
me
and
that
got
he
her
stayed.
pregnant.
Yeah, he stayed. Well, I don't think it's in the story. It says that she got pregnant, or in the poem, but traditionally in the myth, when he stays there for a year. He fucks her a bunch of times, and then in the poem, his men have to remind him, like,
they want to go home.
We want to go home. And that's finally when he's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. We'll go." And then Cersei is okay with that. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to keep you here against your will." And then she helps them and tells them like, "Oh, you need to go to the underworld and ask Tiresias, you know, how to get home." And then she explains like Charybdis and Scylla and all that stuff to him. And yeah, I was, I don't know. Yeah, even back then, I was just like, this. I don't know. I don't understand how I'm supposed to feel sympathetic for this guy when I know that he was like cheating on his wife actively. And I'm pretty sure, at least in the terms of the story or the Robert Fagles translation, it sounds like he would have just stayed there forever if they hadn't reminded him.
Yeah, no one mentioned anything.
And then you get into the fact that like in the myth, she gives, I'm pretty sure she gives birth to 2 children under him.
I thought it was 1.
And later, in one of the other interpretations of the story, Odysseus is accidentally killed by his son. So it's really weird, and I'm glad they changed it. And also, I think they just needed to change it because the female characters do kind of exist just to either help him or
appease him almost.
appease him, and also I'm glad that they kind of changed it to make it a little more palatable and not contradict the whole aspect of him trying to get home to his wife and kids.
It straight up just ruins the entire movie's through line and
It really
emotional
does.
core.
It does.
So that was a good change. I'm trying to think of what else. The siren stuff still happens.
Yeah.
Like you were saying before, Athena has an actual role in the third act of the poem instead of just being this person to hold his hand when he's opening himself up to his wife. The one time I truly did get emotional in the movie, though, was, dude, I can't tell you how much this hit me when he first gets back to Ithaca, Odysseus, and the dog dies when he finally recognizes him.
Oh, Argus.
Like he had to live as long as he could until he could finally see his mentor again. The guy who saved him from John Leguizamo just throwing him off the cliff. But which, by the way, I fucking chuckled when that happened because I was not expecting that. That guy fucking sailed that little puppy off the cliff. No shits given. But that was probably like the highlight scene for me. He touches him and he's just like, "You can go now, buddy." I'm like, God damn, bro. Fuck Robert Pattinson.
I know that was one that I was looking forward to seeing. And in the poem, I do like in the movie they add like extra context to, because in the poem we see him the moment we're introduced to Argus is the moment that he dies, and like it's still sad in the poem, but I do like that we saw like the origin of him taking the dog as his own.
Yeah,
and just stressing the fact that he's way older than he really should be, and just like all that stuff with like the mistreatment of him by the suitors. I thought that was really nice. And it helped reinforce that moment when it finally gets to the moment where, you know, he sees Odysseus and then he dies. Like, it is really emotional.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just like got lost in like I was just thinking about like the whole Zeus's law in the movie and how that plays into
That's another
everything.
change that I really like. So, like I was telling you before, that it's not specifically spelled out in that way. Like there's, to my understanding, at least in the poem, they never mention anything like Zeus's law, but there are moments where they like invoke Zeus. And there is a general custom of hospitality, and Zeus is referred to like as the god of strangers, and like, oh, you'll face the wrath of Zeus if you don't like extend your hospitality and stuff like that. And so I enjoyed that, even with like the whole idea of Zeus's law, they're still pulling it from the poem. And also you kind of need like a really direct way of explaining this weird custom that they have. And I think this is something that Troy didn't do very well. And why I think a lot of people sometimes kind of like struggle to get invested in what's going on, because they're just like, I don't understand why this is so important to them, especially from like a modern American audience. And so I did enjoy, I did like that they went out of their way to like simplify it so that our dumb American brains would fucking understand what they were talking. Because, you know, for us, it's just like, oh, mine, my property, mine, you can't have this, you can't come in here. And so I liked that, on top of them explaining it. And it is a big part of the movie too, because the whole point is like, you know, the desecration of Zeus's law and not extending hospitality or like twisting it in your own favor, as we see with both Odysseus and the Trojan horse and the suitors. So I liked all of that stuff. And
you know, like to even go back to or more into the Zeus's law stuff, it's like a short little paragraph or something, I think, in the poem, but I think it's the scene right after they first leave Troy to like that little settlement that they went to and ransacked. Like
in the movie?
Yeah, in the movie. I don't remember where that was, but I just remember it standing out as like one of those scenes where Odysseus is kind of using Zeus's law in his favor to just attack people. Because I remember, I think one of the army men says,
Eurolocus.
yeah, the Eurolocus says to one of the people they're taking hostage, all you needed to do was let us in. And I've always find it fascinating how they will pillage the people that don't let them in, but then the people that go to Ithaca and do the same exact thing, you have like his son who will just like let them in, give them soup, but it makes you think like, what does like he do when he was in power? Because they don't really show you too much of who Odysseus was pre-Troy. They have that one scene where
I mean, there's a couple of moments where we do.
the only one scene that I just the only scene that I remember that goes before Troy is when they're doing like the little draft and Elliot Page takes Robert Pattinson's place in the military. And I thought that was a really good scene. Like those were good, but I don't think it really gave you a great sense of who Odysseus was before Troy. And I think the little scene, like the way he commands his troops after all the stuff that happens with Troy is kind of fascinating into like how you could piece those together and who you think the man is when he comes out of this journey.
That's another interesting change from like the poem. I mean, the whole time we're being reminded, even in the poem, because every obstacle that they come across is constantly reminding us of this idea of like in the movie Zeus's law, and in the story like this, hospitality, like with Polyphemus, Calypso, and Circe. It's sort of like a twist on the idea of like of that custom of like, oh, I'm gonna keep you here, or I'm gonna like, with Polyphemus it's like I'm keeping you here because I don't fear the gods and I'm gonna eat you. But they mention in the poem like one of the reasons why they stay there is, we're expecting his hospitality, even though when they first find it, Polyphemus isn't there and they don't know who lives there. And then with Circe, they go in expecting to be received, and she does receive them, but she does it with her own ulterior motive of transforming them into pigs. And then even with like Calypso, she does kind of like take care of him, but she won't let him leave either. But then you get into like the Phaeacians and whatnot, and everyone else who does go out of their way to help him. And so and then you get back to he gets back to Ithaca, and everyone. I think the thing with like the suitors is that in the poem it's they're like squandering his wealth, and insulting his house because they know he's not there. But it does bring into question like this idea of like, does he deserve to come home, and do the suitors deserve to die? But yeah, I mean, I liked all that stuff. It's in keeping with the original myth and the poem, and I like how he kind of, Christopher Nolan kind of expands on that stuff in the movie for for us, the benefit of the audience of understanding all of this stuff. And I think it does help that he makes it or he makes it a point, the idea that the Trojan War or the Trojan horse was this big breakdown of that idea of like, oh, we betrayed the Trojans by doing this. And we kind of like we forsook our own humanity and the idea of like civilization.
I mean, I think that's what made the scene of them all sitting in the Trojan horse work so well, is just seeing the lengths that they went through to be able to get into the city of Troy and get rid of it. Like in the movie Troy, that was never a thought to me, but at the same time, they have like the horse in that movie perfectly set up for them to like transport it into the city. Whereas I feel in this, it's a lot like more realistic in the sense that it's left on the beach so long that like the sand erodes the bottom and that water's kind of just getting in, drowning people as people on top of them are just shitting and pissing on them. Like just some really disgusting stuff, but gives you a great sense of who this army is before they ever slaughter anybody.
And I think that also adds to, like you were saying before, the way that Odysseus is portrayed in the movie. And I've also been seeing a lot of people talk about this too, like how his heroism is recontextualized in the movie from the poem. Like in the poem, he's very, and this is mainly shown with like the interaction with him and Polyphemus, where he does trick him, but right before they leave, like as they're sailing away, he calls out to Polyphemus and he's like,
I'm
my name,
Odysseus.
yeah, like if anyone ever asks you who blinded you and who tricked you, you bumbling idiot, tell them it was Odysseus from Ithaca. Like he wants the glory and he wants the credit for that. So there's this thing about like pride and hubris, and those elements are in the movie. They might be a little downplayed, but you still see those moments. And the other thing too is like people were saying like, oh, this isn't Odysseus. He's not using his wits. And I'm like, he is though. You know what I mean? Like there are moments where you like, first of all, the big one, the Trojan horse, that's featured heavily in the movie. It's a very big talking point. We see it a couple of times from different perspectives. So there's that, and even with like the change with Circe, like in the poem, Odysseus sends like a group of men to go like scout out and see if they can find anyone. And when they come across Circe, all of them except Eurylochus get turned into pigs, and he comes back and reports it. And Odysseus is very quickly like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go and
who is it that comes down to like give him the shit to put into like her soup so he doesn't transform? So doesn't that happen too?
I don't think he has to put it into anything, but he when he's walking up to the walls of Circe's palace, Hermes comes disguised.
Hermes, that's it.
And he grabs like a weed or an herb or something out of the ground. I think it's called moly, and he gives it to him and tells him, as long as you're holding on to this, or as long as you have this, no like spell or something can affect you. And so, even though, yeah, again, we're removing the gods from this aspect of the story, it is kind of less tense because we know going in that Odysseus can't be harmed. And I liked the idea that even though his men have been, and this is another change that I also really appreciated, that we're seeing there's a much bigger emphasis on like the dissent among his men and like their sort of mutinous acts. Like they outright disagree with him, and they're kind of not, as the story goes on, they're not as afraid to say it, and that's a big point of like tension between them. And so I liked in their change with the Circe scene that even though he is in disagreement with his men, he still goes out of his way to go and save them, even though he doesn't really know what's going on or how he's gonna get out of this unscathed. He's just like, I have to go help them. And I liked that. And also, he's still using his wit. Like he sees that this bird is there and that it means something to her. So when she tries to attack him, the first thing he does is he grabs onto it, and he's like, if you don't, stop being like this, I'm going to kill this bird. So like there are moments in the story where he's still using those traits. And, we see the pride with him being like, oh, I don't want to go sail with Agamemnon. And, the pride when he shoots the Cyclops right as they've escaped. Like we see those in the movie. But there's a bigger emphasis on making him kind of more nuanced for like a modern audience and giving him other traits. And, a lot of people will be like, oh, I didn't like that they made Odysseus a pussy because, oh, my hero shouldn't have trauma. He shouldn't have guilt. And it's like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like nobody cares. It makes him more relatable and way more sympathetic because he kind of does come off as a pompous asshole in the Greek myth and the poem. Yeah. But it's a product of its time. Back then these were the qualities that they wanted to live up to.
I guess this is a solid time to bring up my feelings towards Matt Damon in this movie. Because
I do want to talk about the casting as a whole, not in terms of like the DEI stuff.
I know, I do too. That's why I'm kind of using this as like the transition point for it, because his performance is something that I've sat on a little bit more and I've started to appreciate a little bit more. I don't think this film has as many strong performances as what I think a lot of the public is letting on. However, I do think Matt Damon gives a really good performance in this movie. I just don't think it's his best, like a lot of people are saying. And like that's where I feel like I'm kind of in the mix.
I mean, I've definitely seen him in better roles, but I definitely think he's one of the standouts in the movie for sure. And I think if you also because I did watch Interstellar and Oppenheimer before this, so I or before the podcast at least. I've seen him under Christopher Nolan in other like supporting roles, so maybe that's kind of what I kind of had in my head when I was watching it. So I thought he was doing a really good job, and I think it helps that he's definitely one of the more rounded characters. I don't know if I would have liked his performance if it was just a 1-to-1 translation from the poem either. So I think he does a really good job, and you do feel sympathetic for him throughout pretty much all of the movie, and then by the time he gets home, you really do want him to kill all of them, and like have somewhat of a happy ending.
I think Matt Damon also adds a nice kind of softness to Odysseus in this that I feel like you probably don't get in the poems or like the old myth where
you do, but
do you?
It's different. So like there are emotional moments with him in the Argos moment is in the poem, and there are moments when he's reuniting with people and also just like because in the Phaeacian subplot in the poem. There is a bard who is singing about like the Trojan War, and the Achaeans that suffered there is what they say. Yeah. And every time they bring it up, or every time this bard is like singing about it, he just starts to weep like inconsolably. And so there are soft moments to him, and he's not rough with, he's not rough with like everyone that he meets. Like he does approach things with a sort of like gentle and hospitable mindset, but then there are moments where he's just like, yeah, I don't really care, or we're gonna do this a certain way or whatever.
Yeah,
but I think that's just a product of the time and like who they thought leaders were. So it is and it isn't pretty balanced throughout. Like I mean he's pretty harsh to like certain people, but you kind of get the sense that they deserve it, and I don't think any of it's really unwarranted in the poem. So
I will say I think Anne Hathaway's by far the best performance in the movie, though.
I would agree. Yeah, I think she's doing, especially given how little she has to do. I mean, not as little in comparison to some of the other actors in this movie, but I mean,
she's in one room for the entire film.
Yeah, but I did feel the most for her, like emotionally, and even though I would have preferred maybe they, changed some things around just to make her feel more prominent or more important. I did really like her performance.
I keep thinking about the one scene that Odysseus and Penelope had right before he left, and how it's a great scene and it's really powerful between the two actors. But I just keep thinking about how pivotal that moment is for the rest of the film, because they are not together for most of it up until the very end. And for a film to make you connect to their relationship that the way this movie does, I think does a really good job at it, because they don't have any scenes really together. And the one scene that they do, they absolutely sell their relationship. And it does help that Anne Hathaway throughout the entire movie is just like fucking killing it left and right. The one scene she had with Robert Pattinson when he's like, let me just be your husband, fuck everyone else. I'm like, damn, guys, okay, I see you.
I wish he had more scenes like that. Like, I know I kind of talked to you a little bit before about how in the poem too, like her I mean, it's definitely worse in the poem, because every time she has a conversation with Telemachus, he's kind of a dick to her.
It's opposite in the movie.
Yeah, and in the movie, it's opposite in this one. And the thing that I was worried about when I saw it was just like, I know people are going to complain about this on both sides of like how it kind of just reduces her to this this one role and idea. And I do think they could have, done more with that, but I thought it was enough for the movie. But I did wish she had a little more scenes. I mean, it's that scene and the one with Odysseus that are probably like the strongest ones. And I think those are the scenes that really make her a strong contender for like the Oscars that are gonna come around towards the end of the year and beginning of next year. But I would have appreciated more conversations. It's difficult though because it is a long movie, and I didn't know this, but I saw recently that Christopher Nolan said that he cut some stuff out to keep it under 3 hours because I guess IMAX projectors can't handle anything longer than that.
Yeah, I think they get too hot,
I would
bro.
I would 100% be interested to see like if maybe we could get a director's cut or like an extended version of the movie. Because I think there are some things that maybe could have been explored a little better, and one of those things is so Mia Goth is in this movie for some reason, and I thought it was weird because I kept forgetting she was gonna be in it, and then I remember I saw a picture from the premiere, and
you're like,
there was
why
a
is she
picture
here?
of her. There was a picture of her on the red carpet, and I was like, why is she there? And I was like, she in this movie? And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, she is in the movie. And then I also heard like before we went and saw it that I saw someone say that they thought that her performance was the worst. And then I remember when we got out of the theater, I looked at her and I was like, I don't know if she's in it enough for me to really care whether or not her performance is good or bad. And there's just nothing for her to do with this role. Like, she's not in the movie very much, and I think the only reason she is in the movie is so that during the scene between Robert Pattinson and Anne Hathaway, he can be like, oh, I know that, you're not actually weaving all of this. You're just undoing it every night. And yeah, I don't know. Literally, that's all. It's that, and then she like makes out with Robert Pattinson a couple of times. And I was just like, did we really need to put Mia Goth in this? Like, because at that point, I'm just like, just make it a nameless character, because they don't say in the poem exactly, or at least the version that I read, they don't say who it was that they just say it was one of her hand servants that got her caught for doing this whole elaborate weaving thing. But what's interesting is that in the poem we do see more of her though, because there's 2 scenes where she like insults Odysseus, who is pretending to be a beggar. And so I thought that made it much more reasonable as to why she's kind of like a bad person. And it's not resolved either, because, at least in the poem, the hand servants that Odysseus says were disloyal to him, like they kill them. But then in this movie, Penelope tells her like, oh, I think you're better off down there where all the men are getting killed. And then we never see what happens to her. So I was just like, that was really what cemented in my mind, like, why was this character in the movie? And why did we make Mia Goth like do nothing in this movie? Because I was telling you, like, I feel like it would have been way better to just have like an unknown actress play the role to sort of be like their big shot in the movies. Because the whole time I was just like, oh, that's Mia Goth. She's just not doing anything. She's just there. But there's a couple of casting things where I'm just like, I don't understand why we needed this.
Yeah, like you know this, but I've been going back and forth about how I felt about Tom Holland in this movie. I love Tom Holland. You're not going to hear no Tom Holland.
I think he's
slander
fine
from me.
for what the story calls for.
I agree. The one scene that truly stood out for me, though, is the scene between him and Penelope. And why
The one where she makes fun of his beard.
Yeah, where she makes fun of his
stubble,
beard
or his bristle or whatever. That's
just because for me, like, that was the true like culmination of his story. And like, yeah, his dad comes back and he has a nice little interaction when he realizes that Odysseus is back. But for me, this is truly where like the character became a man, having to realize that his mother has to kind of sell herself so he can live the life that he thinks could still exist, because it can't. And like, that is the kind of perception on the life in this movie that people have that isn't really spoken about too much, like outside of maybe like Game of Thrones. And I thought that was like a really pivotal scene for his character and hers too, because it feels like she's trying to shield him from a lot of like what it means if she doesn't get married again. Because Tom Holland, the entire film's like, Mom, just let me be king. You know, you don't have to marry anybody. Like, bro, that's not how it works. And so for him to finally start clicking that things aren't always what you want it to be, instead, sometimes you have to make it what you need it to be, is that was part of the reason why I think that scene really worked for me right as you get into that third act.
I think since the movie's come out, or like since we've seen it, I've come to appreciate it more a little bit, because especially having just finished the poem where, you know, he is kind of a dick. And I was telling you too, like, his arc is pretty much the first 4 chapters of the book. And yeah, I mean, it's I liked going in how they like sort of stretched it out to more the full runtime of the movie, so that by the end you kind of have a semblance of like the arc instead of just it all being packed into the beginning of the story. That said, I do still think it could have been done better. So, in case you guys didn't know, Mia Goth's character is actually supposed to be the twin sister of what's his name, Logan Marshall Green's character. They don't say this in the movie, but apparently that is what it is. I mean, it is that in the poem, but
who would have guessed?
So he's not in the movie very much either. I mean, he does have more to do somehow than Mia Goth, but my thing is that they make Telemachus' big moment fighting him, which in the moment I thought was kind of odd, because Telemachus doesn't interact with him except for the one time where he like trips him, and I to me it felt like he had more of a beef with Antinous, and I kind of would have wanted to see them duking out more. But I understand from the context of the story, it can't happen that way. So I think we could have seen more of Telemachus interacting with him to set up this idea like, oh, these two don't really like each other, and that by the end, it would feel more satisfying to me when he does eventually kill him. Yeah, because even my mother, or not, sorry, even my sister and my aunt, like when we were watching the movie, or after we got out the theater, they were like, oh yeah, like that really annoyed me in the third act when like Telemachus kept getting the shit beat out of him, and they were just like, oh, fight harder. So I think there's some issue with that, like, but I do overall prefer the portrayal in this movie to like the poem. So
now I want to bring up something. It was worse in Tenet, but man, dude, the sound mixing in this movie has got to be some of the craziest shit
okay
I've experienced in a hot while, my guy.
Here's the thing with the sound. It wasn't the worst that I've experienced.
It was just aggressive.
It's very aggressive. There were a couple of times where I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be able to hear what they were saying, and I couldn't. But it didn't happen too many times. Like for the most part, I was able to like hear pretty well what was going on. I think the main issue is that I feel like the score kind of gets lost in the mix with a lot of like the big like bass heavy sounds, of which there are a lot. And I don't know if this is inherently a mixing problem. I do know that like Christopher Nolan mixes his films very meticulously, which is a good thing. It's just I don't think a lot of theaters are set up that way. My thing is the reason. So the theater that we saw it in was one that I kind of stopped going to for a really long while, because I kept going there to watch movies and the sound would be atrocious. And like I think I saw the first Dune movie there. And Jesus fucking Christ, dude, I could not hear a single fucking thing they were saying. It was so goddamn annoying. I was like, what the fuck am I listening to right now? Like the sound effects were and the music were super loud, but the voices were really low, and then if you were hearing both at the same time, I wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying, and that stuff like that would keep happening. And so to me, it just seemed like the theater wasn't calibrating their speakers properly. So I feel like it's a mix of the way that Nolan mixes his movies so precisely that when you see it in a theater that isn't taking care of its theater very well, it can feel like it's not mixed very well. And I'm interested to get this on physical media and see. I mean,
I've been hearing people have the same, not complaints, but like they've been saying the same thing about how it feels very bassy. Like I'll be honest, like it's really hard for me to sit here and judge Ludwig Göransson's score because of how heavy the bass was a lot. And it was really hard for me to distinct between a score and the sound for the movie for a good portion of the runtime.
that's how I felt too.
Whereas I feel like with like Tenet, it was the opposite. Instead of the music you couldn't hear, was the dialogue because of all the bass and all the sound effects. And so like this film has like the exact opposite kind of issue.
Well, I think this is when I really started to pay attention to the way that his movies are mixed. And this is another thing, like, I also struggled on my rewatch of Interstellar this last time because, you know, my setup down here, in where I'm living, I have a 2.1 soundbar, and most movies nowadays are mixed with like 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound. And my thing is that a lot of movies nowadays don't offer you anything else. So what it was mixed for with like a theater in mind, or, you know, a surround sound system in mind, it, you know, if you're watching it through like the TV speakers or just like a regular soundbar, it's gonna sound weird. And with Interstellar, I really struggled to hear what was going on because the music and the sound effects would be so ungodly loud, and then whenever they're talking, it would be so low. Partially because in the scene they were talking kind of like with a low register, but it just made it all worse. And so that was something that. It's something that's why I'm curious when it comes to DVD and like Blu-ray and stuff, that, you know, I'm curious how it sounds on like a home system. And this isn't just the Christopher Nolan thing either. I think it's worse with Christopher Nolan movies, just the way that his movies are mixed and like the sounds that he leans towards. But this is a problem that I have with a lot of movies nowadays, that, you know, before you could choose, and I have like my DVD copy of Memento that I also watched prior to this does also have a 5.1 mix and a stereo mix. So, you know, I watched it and I was like, oh, I can hear what they're saying. So I think movies really should give you the option, because not everyone has a fucking surround sound system. So anyway, that's just my little tangent about the sound.
No, I agree. That's why like I wanted to bring it up for a little bit, because I think it's funny that this has become a conversation about Nolan.
No, yeah, but I mean, I do think this, like, there are sound design moments from the movie, like the siren one, like that one was really, I really liked that. I was.
What about like when Polyphemus is like crying out to what I'm assuming is the other
like the voice?
Cyclopses? Yeah, but like when he's running down the mountain after he gets shot in the eye, and he does like that the crying, because in the poems, doesn't he, after he gets like stabbed in the eye and he goes chasing after them, doesn't he like cry out for like more Cyclopses or something to come and help? Or do they come and help?
It's not as they're escaping, but in the poem, because he doesn't open so after they stab him, he can't see, so he huddles up next to the door to make sure that they don't escape. And when in the morning when he lets out his sheep, it's similar in the movie, but it's a little different. So in the poem, they strap themselves to like the underside of the sheep, so that as they're going by, he won't notice them. And so, but before that, right after they blind him, he calls out to the other Cyclops that are around on the island, and he's crying in pain and all that.
Help me,
and
little bitches.
when they come over, they're like, "Oh, Polyphemus, what's happening? Is someone killing you? Is someone robbing you?"
And
and then
he's
he
like,
says,
nobody
yeah, he
hurt
says,
me.
nobody is killing me, nobody blinded me, because before that, when he was talking to Odysseus, I told you in the car that uh, one of the plunders of the town or the city that they raid right after leaving Troy, they stole some of their like wine reserves or whatever, and they started giving it to him, trying to like bargain with him sort of, and so he drank all of it essentially, and he was like, "Oh, this is the greatest wine I've ever had. It's like the nectar of the gods. It's like ambrosia." And he was like, "Who? What's your name?" to Odysseus, and Odysseus says, "My name is Nobody." And he was like, "Oh, okay, well," and Odysseus asks him like, "Oh, will you give us like a guest gift?" Which is another custom, like you're supposed to gift the strangers that you extend hospitality to. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll give you a guest gift. I'll eat you last. That'll be my guest gift to you." And so, after they escape, oh, sorry. So yeah, after when he gets his eye gouged out and the Cyclops come, he says Nobody because that's who he thinks his name is. And then the Cyclops all leave because they're like, okay, well then shut the fuck up. Why are you, if nobody's in there with you, why are you,
Why are you
screaming like a
crying,
little
bro?
bitch?
Yeah, why
Yeah,
are you
stop
crying?
whining. And so, yeah, and that's another thing that goes into later. Like I said, when they're leaving, Odysseus is like, "I want the credit for this. I blinded you, so tell people that this." And so yeah, that's how it is in the myth.
Okay, that's what I thought.
um, but yeah, what were we talking about before this?
I don't really
Oh, the
remember
sound.
the sound.
So yeah, I mean, I like what they did with the Polyphemus's voice. And I think where the score really does work in terms of intensity is the climax of the movie. The climax of the movie is really really good, and that was one where I did feel it was appropriate for it to be like that kind of loud and intense because I could feel it in the
You
cinema.
felt God coming down, bro. Zeus.
Pretty much, yeah.
You felt Zeus with his fucking lightning
And
bolts.
but yeah, I mean, I've had the chance to listen to the score on its own, and I mean even before that, like the theme to this movie, I've had it stuck in my head ever since we got into the theater. It's really good, and I do think he'll probably get nominated for another Oscar for this, which I think is warranted because just thinking about how the score was produced without using like a traditional orchestra and like creating replicas of like ancient Greek instruments, like it gives it a really interesting sound. And yeah, the theme is really memorable, and I've been listening to it. It's really good. So I think the score is definitely a standout in the movie as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just trying to think. Like, I don't want to really talk about the visual effects because of the way it's shot really well. We all know this. I think everyone's looked up how cool the IMAX stuff is at this point.
I
You
really
know,
wish we'd gotten to see it in 70 millimeter, but
dude, I would not pay like
I'm
$300 to see it off of like a reselling. You know what I mean? Like, I love
yeah.
movies, but like that's obnoxious. Just make more 70 millimeter projectors,
Oh
assholes.
well, they can't, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, seeing it in regular IMAX or like IMAX laser or whatever it's called,
It was still
like
really
it
good.
was
It
still,
didn't
yeah, no, it was
matter.
really good. And I think if I do go back and rewatch it, I might just do either the 70 millimeter or like just the standard, just to see what the difference is. But I mean, the story is really good still, and I'm sure you'll still be able to you'll still be able to see like the cinematography on display, even if you're not seeing it like as it was shot, I guess. But I mean, it's still a feat in that knowing like how they shot it with it all being in IMAX, using the blimp and the mirrors because the camera's so fucking massive.
Shooting for 3 minutes in a 10-minute
Oh yeah, yeah,
scene,
yeah, yes.
having like everybody stop what they're doing to refill, to recharge, or like to reload the camera, and then do another 3 minutes, do the same thing before you're finished with the scene, and then you could finish the scene if you're lucky. So it's like all those little things that make me appreciate this film a little bit more. It feels like the most authentic and raw version of a film that could be made nowadays, and it gets the little brain the little brain matter in my head for being a filmmaker going.
No, yeah, and I think, yeah, I don't know. Going back to like the thing about like Nolan's other filmography, I think this one fits in nicely with like some of his best work. I don't think it's his best movie, but it's up there in my like top 5. And
I'm glad you brought that up because I was just gonna say let's do rankings because
no, yeah, I do want to rank his movies
because right now I'm going into Letterboxd and
no,
placing
yeah.
them before
Oh, okay.
I get to
I have
it.
them placed. I didn't get to watch all of them. Like I didn't get to rewatch Insomnia. I mean, I've seen it more recently than some of the other ones. I haven't seen Following yet. But I don't know if we should count that one because it's not a really long movie, and it's. I mean, it's pretty close to like an amateur movie essentially.
Who the fuck cares, bro? It's Christopher Nolan.
It's interesting seeing the evolution of Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker. And this is a movie that I was really excited for because it was not just because it was a Christopher Nolan movie, but because I read, a version of the Odyssey in high school, and I do really enjoy Greek mythology. And I was really excited. I think it's still a really good movie. And I don't think you necessarily have to be familiar with the poem to go and see it and enjoy it. That being said, I was seeing a lot of interesting takes on the movie before and after we saw it that I was just like, I don't understand where you guys are getting this from. But yeah, are you ready to go into rankings?
You go first because I'm almost done.
Okay, let me.
I'm like
I just have to pull it up.
I literally had to like throw them all into a little thing right now because Insomnia.
Oh, did someone?
I'm gonna leave out his first film because that's the only one I've never seen.
Oh, Following, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is my current rank. I'm gonna start from the bottom and work my way up. Tenet is, I think, his worst movie. And not to say that it's like the worst movie I've seen. There's definitely other filmmakers who have made worse stuff, like in their long filmography. I just think Tenet is like his most confusing one, and I remember when I first watched it, I kind of didn't understand what was happening. I've warmed up to it as I've rewatched it, but this is one that I would kind of hesitate to recommend to people who like aren't familiar with Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker or aren't familiar with like the genre of like action thrillers and like the state of it up until now. Yeah, so my next one is The Dark Knight Rises. It's also not his best. It's easily by default, it's the worst in the Dark Knight trilogy. I think I gave that one a 3.5. It's fine, but it's the one that I revisit the least, especially when rewatching the Dark Knight trilogy. So number 10 is The Prestige. This is a movie I've only seen once, and while I do think it's a good movie, it's also one that I don't go back to. I think it's not his most interesting movie, but yeah. Number 9 is Batman Begins. I gave this a 4. I think this is a really solid Batman flick, but it's. I think this is one where he leans less on his own like style as a filmmaker, and this is the only one where he's like trying to make it more in line with like a Batman movie or like a comic book. At 8, I put Dunkirk, which I also gave a 4. I know you and I talked about this a little bit. It's not his. It's the characters in the movie aren't the most interesting, but I think the thing that he's obviously trying to comment on is like humanity in this like dire moment, and I think that part of the movie works, and it is also very intense. It just might be a struggle to follow along if you don't understand the way that the timeline works. And next is Inception, which I also gave a 4. I rewatched this last night. It's still a good movie, and it's definitely a really good action thriller. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's gone down for me since I first saw it. But yeah. Next, and this is the one you're gonna hate me for. Number 6, I put Insomnia. I just really like that movie. I think it's got a really great performance from both Al Pacino and Robin Williams. And I think for the time that it came out, and especially in his filmography, I just think it's aged a lot better. And number 5 is Memento. This one used to be my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. It's still really fun to watch. Just the way that it was, the way it was produced. I can't get enough of it. Number 4, which I also did finally rewatch, is Oppenheimer. I think I gave that a 4.5. What did I get? I don't think I said for Insomnia. Insomnia, I'd probably give like a 4. Memento's a 4.5. But yeah, Oppenheimer 4.5. A lot of people say this is his magnum opus, but I wouldn't agree. It's still a really good movie. It's really long, but the pace of it is also kind of quick, which is a little odd at times. But Cillian Murphy kills it in the movie. Like, he's definitely the best part of the movie, and I think that's the reason why it's so easily rewatchable in comparison to some of the other ones. Just his performance is just so good, and Robert Downey Jr. too. Like, those are the two performances that I have stayed with, or that have stayed with me. Sorry. Then number 3 is the Odyssey. Like I said, it's not his best movie either, but I think this is the one that people are going to remember for the longest time, probably outside of like The Dark Knight. Just for the way that it was made, being completely shot, the first movie to be completely shot in IMAX, and yeah, I really like the story. Interstellar is number 2. I gave it a 4.5. This is another one that I've rewatched more over the years, and I've come to have a better understanding of it. I think it's his most thematically consistent story, and I think that's why I keep going back to it. But yeah, and then number 1 is The Dark Knight at 4.5 stars. I think that's his best movie, and I don't think he'll ever make a movie that's as good or better than that.
Dude, I'm definitely gonna piss you off with my list then after listening to that.
Christ, dude.
I
know the one you think is the worst is Insomnia, right?
No, it's actually Tenet. Tenet's
okay.
Yeah, no. Tenet's the one I really never want to go back to. None of the characters are particularly well written. I think a lot of the film's worthiness of seeing, I'll call it, is due to the cool concept that the film presents as its main plot, but that doesn't get it very far for like a film that's like 2.5 hours, especially when you need captions to watch it to know what they're saying.
Okay, no,
this is also
that's a little unfair. The DVD copy that I have, the sound is not bad. I don't have it on DVD. Is it not bad? I'll give them that. Do you have it at all, or
no? I don't.
You've only seen it in the theaters.
Yeah, I've only seen it in theaters.
It's not bad. It's not as bad on a rewatch.
That makes me feel better. But right after that, at number 11, I have Dunkirk. I know me and you spoke about it the other day a little bit, but I would objectively say this is his most boring and unintuitive film he's ever made.
I would disagree with that.
I just think a lot of the emotional beats that have to do with war and the story he's trying to tell, I feel like are missing, partially due because I don't think he got a lot of the right actors, on top of the script not giving many of the actors much to do throughout the entire film. I think the script is a little too unfocused. I feel like if there was more of a Private Ryan trying to stick with one person throughout the entire thing, maybe I'd become a little bit more invested. But like by the end of Dunkirk, I don't care about the characters. I know it's based off of a real world event, but it doesn't make me feel that. So I honestly, Dunkirk and Tenet could really just like flip flop for me. They're kind of just like on the same board for me. But then I got Dark Knight Rises. It's obviously the worst one of the Dark Knight trilogy, I think. I don't think any of us have to fight or argue on that one. Just too long. I think this is where the idea of trying to make a grounded Batman movie with not very grounded characters with like Bane work as well. As much as I can sit here and say Tom Hardy was cool as Bane, that's, to me, I don't feel like I'm watching like the true Bane, as I feel like, you know what, people had the same thing about Ra's al Ghul, but I feel like that's a lot easier to get over than Bane in this instance. When I think about Bane, I want this motherfucker to be jacked, pumped up with every goddamn fucking venomous thing on this planet, and cracking the bat. I think the biggest...
You want him to be Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Dude, I think that'd be cooler, honestly. Because, like, my thing is, they try doing the breaking the bat stuff from the comic books, and it's hard for me to believe it in this movie simply because Batman's just old. And that's what it feels like. And it feels like a very bitch tactic to me.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is where you're going to get mad at me, or you might not. It's a lot higher than I think you thought it'd be. But now I have insomnia. I don't know if this is higher.
I'm not mad about it because it's one of the movies that in his filmography people rank the lowest.
I know they do, but this is one that I've even acknowledged to you. I have to go back and watch it. I haven't seen it in a very long time, but also it's not my favorite. You know, it's not my favorite Al Pacino performance. I like Robin Williams, but also to me, like I said, this might come back to me if I rewatch it, but it feels like it's missing a lot of the Nolanisms in terms of the way it's shot. But
I wouldn't agree with that, but
that's what I'm saying. This could be totally me misremembering it, but
I think
this
is one of his better shot movies.
This is the one film out of everything he's done, except for his first film, that I feel like I do need to go back on to get a better opinion on.
I think you should. It's a really engrossing like mystery thriller. Like I kind of compared it to Knives Out in the way that it not in tone, but in the way that it's a twist on the idea of like a detective murder mystery.
Yeah. And that's why I want to go back and just like kind of reconvene my thoughts on it. And it could go up, but for me, this is where I feel like the jump for Nolan becomes prevalent in his filmmaking.
That's fair, yeah.
Right after Insomnia, I have The Prestige. Prestige is, I'm going to say it's one of my favorite films, but it's like fucking 8 on this list. But dude,
that one's the one that I have to go back to.
Dude, I love The Prestige. It's got one of my favorite Nolan endings of all time. I hate to say that though, because I do typically like a lot of Nolan's endings.
I think that's the ending that I kind of dislike the most, even though I don't think the movie's the worst one. But again, I haven't seen it. The first time I saw it was like probably in 2013. And I didn't even know I didn't know who Christopher Nolan was at the time, and I thought it was a fine
it was pretentious.
Movie. No, I didn't think it was pretentious. I thought it was a fine movie, but it didn't do much for me, and that's one of the reasons why I've been hesitant to revisit it.
I think Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale have a really good back and forth rivalry in the movie that it's like they have such a really good chemistry that in the film it's so obvious that they not only need each other to kind of coexist like the Batman Joker type of dynamic, but they do somewhat kind of care about each other because if it wasn't for them trying to one up each other, they don't feel like they'd have a purpose until like, I don't want to spoil the ending if you've never seen it or if you don't remember it. But like the ending just chef's kiss. Right after that, I have Batman Begins. I think this was like the first time you could make like, I hate to say a grounded superhero movie because a dude fighting crime in a bat suit's already not grounded. But I think Nolan did the best with what he can with Batman. And Christian Bale isn't my all-time Batman, but I still really love him as Batman in this movie.
He's the one that I grew up with, so that's what I'll say.
I don't know if you feel this way. Who played Rachel in the first one? What was her name again?
Oh, Katie Holmes.
Who do you like more, Katie Holmes or Maggie Gyllenhaal? I prefer
100%
Katie Holmes.
Maggie Gyllenhaal. No.
I prefer Katie Holmes.
No.
Yeah,
We're not going to do this right now. We're not going to do this right now. There's no fucking way, bruh. She's the worst thing about that movie by far. Maggie Gyllenhaal is a way better actress.
That's not what the conversation was, bro.
What do you mean that's not what the conversation was? If I don't think she's doing a good job, I'm not gonna like her in the movie.
I thought she had a better role in this movie than she. Bro, shut the fuck up. Just listen to me.
No, I don't want to.
After Batman Begins, this is where I feel like I'm going to piss a lot of people off. Not you, but people. Okay. I have Oppenheimer after Batman Begins.
What number is that?
2, 4, 6, 7. This is 7 for me.
Okay, that's interesting.
But like I said, there's a massive jump in quality for me between Insomnia and The Prestige.
So you think Inception is better than Oppenheimer?
Dude, you're really gonna kill me.
Is that is that number one for you?
No. You already know what my number one is.
What is it? Interstellar?
Just wait, bro. Just wait.
Okay, I'm just so curious how you're gonna justify this.
One, it's too long. I really love...
You don't like the Robert Downey Jr. stuff.
That's what I was about to say. I love Robert Downey Jr. as an actor. I think he's fantastic, but it feels like a good 30 minutes of this movie was written specifically for him to act really well.
I don't agree with that though.
That's fine. You know what? That's why I said I know this is going to be a hot take. I really appreciate the strides that Nolan tried to take with this movie. I think the best part of it is the ending when you see Cillian Murphy with the meme face of him coming to the conclusion that he's the destroyer of worlds almost. To me, that's really what cements a lot of the movie for me. But I feel like a lot of the film is saved by just really good performances. And
that's fair.
You pointed out something. The film feels really inconsistent, where it feels like it will get through and do a lot of things in 30 minutes, and then take a really dramatic pause for like 40 minutes worth of the movie to really hone in this super dramatic. Outside of like the actual nuke testing scene, which is phenomenal, a lot of those scenes where they take really drastic like times for him to get into emotional argument with like Florence Pugh, those type of things to me didn't add a lot to Oppenheimer's character. I hate to say character because he's not a character, he's a person.
I mean, he is a character, but
he is, but like, you know what I mean, you know, like this is very much who he is. But at the same time, I don't think it added anything for the movie outside of like, oh, he was a cheater. To me, it didn't make him feel any more emotionally deep or any more emotionally distraught. And it was like a lot of those little things that kind of took me out of the movie, but I could see how it helped other people. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I agree with you for the most part. Like, I do think there are parts of the movie where I'm like, did we need to see this? Did we need to focus on it? I think, because I know I texted you when I was rewatching it, and I was like, oh, I forgot how like odd the sex scenes are in this movie. And because it does feel like that, it's kind of all Florence Pugh's character amounts to. Yeah. And it doesn't, it's not helped that like I feel like she's characterized in an interesting way in that she kind of doesn't, to me it felt like she kind of didn't like Oppenheimer, but they don't really explore that idea. And it really is just there for when he's, being persecuted, I guess. That they're like, oh, she was a communist. But, I think in the context of the movie, there's enough other like communist related stuff going on that maybe they didn't need to include that. And, the only time that I thought that the Florence Pugh stuff made sense is when is in the context of Emily Blunt's character, where like she's seeing it happen in the conference room, and you really get an understanding of like her disdain for that, like how all of this laundry is being let out for everyone to see. But it's a very brief moment. It's not brought up a lot again. But I think most of Emily Blunt's stuff is really just its performance stuff is not really written that well. But
no, yeah, I was about to say there's a reason why Emily Blunt won Best Supporting Actress. Her scene at the end of the movie when she's being interviewed is probably the best scene in the film.
No, yeah, it's really good. And I don't know. I like Robert Downey Jr. and I think
He's good.
I think the reason why it doesn't bug me is that it is for us to see from like a real world, like more objective perspective, how Oppenheimer was viewed and how they all kind of like turned against him. And so that's the stuff that I enjoy.
I liked it, but I don't feel like it did as much for me in terms of the way I, as the viewer, viewed Oppenheimer, because I feel like within Oppenheimer, Nolan wants you to obviously feel that weight that he feels once he realizes the monumental thing that he's done, that he's going to be remembered for killing all these people, the destroyer of worlds. Like, I like all of that. I just wish it was tighter on that rather than I feel like the film gets a little too hung up on what a lot of the public thought. And I think that's it. Like, at least an hour and a half of the film is dedicated to that, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I just wish it was a little tighter in that sense. But like I said, I feel like Oppenheimer and The Odyssey both have a chance to kind of, like, age better for me. Even though I haven't gotten to The Odyssey yet, I still feel like it could get, like, age better and go up for me.
So is The Odyssey in your top 5 at least?
Yeah, I'm about to get into my top 5.
I thought that was Oppenheimer was 7. You said so. What's
sorry, it was 6. Oppenheimer was 6. Sorry,
okay.
I did my math wrong. Yeah, no.
All right,
Oppenheimer
so
was 6.
Who's number 5?
Memento.
Okay, I like that placement. I think that one's number 5 for me as well.
It's the most Nolanism film of all time.
Okay, it is and it isn't, because you and I talked about how, like, if he had made that movie like now, it would be way less character driven, and the idea of the way it's edited would be much more like a gimmick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Guy Pearce, this is like his best role that I've ever seen him in. He eats it up. I think it's got
It's crazy that they've never worked together again. I really want to see him come back in another Nolan movie.
And, like, he's still young enough to, like, do a Nolan movie. It's not like he's that old, too. Then right after Memento at number 4, I have The Odyssey.
Okay. Interesting.
Like I said, though, this is where I feel like over time, well, like I said,
so
Odyssey,
Inception is better than The Odyssey?
Inception's my third film, bro. I love Inception.
I don't think it's that good, though. Like,
dude, Leonardo plays like one of the most heartbreaking characters I've seen him play.
That's crazy that you called him Leonardo.
Dude, he's a fucking legend. You call legends by their full name. You don't call, like, bro, get out of here. Then
I think you need to start calling me by my full name then.
I have, bro. I've literally called you Leonardo plenty of times.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, I did. Number 2 I have is the Dark Knight.
Wait, number 2 is The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
So Interstellar is your first one then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
No way, bro. Interstellar is Nolan's best fucking film.
It's not.
It is his best.
The Dark Knight is his best movie.
He literally gets the performance of a lifetime out of fucking Matthew McConaughey.
He gets the performance of a lifetime out of Heath Ledger.
Not like Matthew McConaughey.
The only reason you don't like The Dark Knight is because they recast Katie Holmes, isn't it? Don't fucking lie either. Don't fucking deny it, you.
Bro, you caught me. You caught me. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. It went down an entire
That's
fucking.
So fucking crazy, dude. That's ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous, dude.
No, Interstellar is just a far better movie. I'm sorry. Someone's gonna.
No, okay. So, like I said before, Interstellar is his most thematically cohesive in terms of in the whole like.
Dude, it's his best visual effects movie too. Like, what are you talking about?
I would agree with that. But my thing is that, you know, The Dark Knight is so intense, like throughout the entire runtime, and
it's because of the score, bro.
It's not because of the score.
Okay, shut the fuck
up. I don't listen to Hans Zimmer like stuff outside of Interstellar.
Of course you don't, because you're a bum.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the story is better, and it's also easier to follow in The Dark Knight. Like Interstellar is a movie that you have to watch.
Yeah, bro, it's a fucking
times
Batman movie
to
what
like
do you expect?
fully understand. And I think that's just something that kind of it doesn't, it leads to it not holding the one spot. Like that's the one detriment to it, that you have to watch it more than once to even begin to fully understand it. And then the first time you watch The Dark Knight, you're just like, oh my god, that's a great movie. It's one of the greatest movies.
You know who didn't have to watch Interstellar twice to understand it?
Don't say you.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Why do we care about Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Because you're saying everyone has to watch it twice to understand it, but there's a person out there who doesn't. I'm just trying to prove you wrong, bro.
No, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson does, because he's probably the only person that watched the movie and was like,
bro,
"Oh,
it
that's
probably helped him with the fucking science physics." On
no. He didn't help Interstellar. There was a different scientist that helped Interstellar. But I know for a fact Neil deGrasse Tyson was the only one who watched it, and it was like, "Oh, that wasn't very sciencey." So.
All right, bro, this is getting too long. Let's get to let's get to our final score for Odyssey, and then final.
I kind of already said mine, but yeah.
I didn't give my score for Odyssey. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, loser.
Yeah, but like I said, I feel like I want to see it again in IMAX before it goes away. So that's probably going to be
good luck.
That's going to be on my plan for next week, and then I think Odyssey is a much more better film than Oppenheimer for me.
No, yeah.
In terms of rewatchability. Even though they're the same length, but I don't know. But
Odyssey is like 10 minutes shorter.
Thank fucking Zeus. Thank the gods. But Leo, what are we watching next week?
Next week we're taking a look back on the Spider-Man Home trilogy, because Spider-Man Brand New Day is coming out at the end of the month. So we are going to talk about Brand New Day, but we're going to go ahead and take a look back at the first 3 Spider-Man solo MCU movies, which I'm excited for.
The best films
Homecoming is probably still one of my favorite MCU movies.
I agree.
It's also my favorite Spider-Man movie. So
Far From Home, I've gotten. Wait, no.
Far From Home is the second one.
Okay, yeah, I am thinking of that. Far From Home, I've gotten a little bit nastier about as I've gotten older. I've become less enthused by it. Yeah. I used to really...
It came out like decades ago.
Bro, it feels like it. It feels like it. But I'm excited to watch these. I'm really excited for Brand New Day.
No, yeah, me too. I'm going to be there in theaters, bro.
And I have to buy my tickets.
What.
I have to buy my tickets.
I also have to buy my tickets. Dude, opening day is all sold out. Like, it's crazy.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? But without a doubt, thank you guys for joining us. If you've seen the Odyssey, if you've read the poems, let us know down below what you guys thought of both of them. And honestly, I'm curious. Let us know what your ranking of Christopher Nolan's films are down below, just because I feel like Nolan
Let us know if you disagree with Ryan.
There's a good chance, and I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for it this week. It's fine though,
dude. I'm gonna clip this and throw it up to see if anyone disagrees with you.
You gotta clip like you were saying, one of us talking about our rankings and get people to like interact and make them do their rankings out of pure disgust for my ranking. This fucking loser, bro. My ranking's so much goddamn better.
Dude, you probably have one of the weirdest rankings that I've seen for Christopher Nolan movies, but yeah.
Dude, get out of here, bro. You're gaslighting me.
And you're the only one who gaslights on this podcast.
That's true.
We saw this in the Evil Dead Burn episode that just came out.
Dude, shut the fuck up. All right, without that said, though, see you guys on the next one. Peace.